With conference play on the horizon, we got to figure out, is it going to be Kyan Evans or Derek Dixon running the show when it's all said and done?
This is Tyler Zeller, and you're listening to Locked On Tar Heels.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Monday, December 29th, 2025. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade. You're joining me at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network there is. Thanks so much for making us your first listener watch on this Monday to get your New Year's week rolling the right way. This episode is brought to you by Rougiette. If you've been thinking about taking the next step, now's the time. Head to rougiette.com/lockedoncollege to get 15% off your order for a limited time. Rougiette ready. Feel present, feel confident, feel ready. Want to give a special shout out to all the everydayers, all the members of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord and our Locked On Tar Heels insiders as well. Great to have you all here. Coming up on the show today, tomorrow starts ACC play, so we're going to have a little bit of a pre-ACC mailbag show. Got some great questions about Carolina's personnel, specifically with the point guard position, which seems to be maybe the biggest area of coming into ACC play between Derek Dixon and Kyan Evans. Got some questions about Carolina's ACC record and their capability there. Got some stuff about Carolina's floor and ceiling, plus are the Tar Heels going to jump into this new wave of apparently anybody can play college basketball at any time? Here's what we're going to get to. Also, a couple just other things. Number one, I am not in my usual place today. You can see if you're watching on YouTube, I'm in a different background with like a shadow over there because I've only got one light over here. I'm recording at my parents' house in Tennessee, and it's great to get to be with them, but just gives it a different place. Speaking of Tennessee, literally just before I recorded this, I got to hang out with Coach Rob for a couple hours, watch the end of his practice at Milligan, and then we had supper together on Sunday evening. Man, such a good time and good to be able to be with Coach Rob. And man, I wish you could have all been there hanging out with us as well because it was so special. All right, let's get right into our mailbag. This first one comes from Reservoir Dogs from our Discord. Reservoir Dog says, by the end of conference play, will Derek Dixon be playing more minutes per game than Kyan Evans? So this is not about level of output. This is not about success. I mean, I guess they kind of go hand in hand as I say that, but about minutes per game. My answer is no. I'll explain it. Currently, Kyan Evans averaging 24.5 minutes per game, Derek Dixon at 16.6. In Carolina's 13 non-conference games, Derek Dixon played more minutes than Kyan Evans just 3 times, although they've come within the last 5-6 games. The first time was the game at Kentucky. Derek Dixon played 23:51 to Kyan 16:09. The Georgetown game, the very next game, game 9, 26:46 to 20:21 in favor of Derek Dixon. And then the Ohio State game, Derek Dixon played more, 24 minutes, even to 15:40 for Kyan Evans. Now, what's interesting about that is that's 3 of Carolina's biggest games in the non-conference slate. So there's something to that as things have gotten like in the back half of things here. Of course, that was also, aside from the Ohio State game, without Seth Trimble in the lineup. So that's a factor here as well. My thought is that coach is going to continue to ride with Kyan Evans at least as the starter, but I think we will continue to see Derek Dixon's minutes increase. But I do think that ultimately Kyan will find his way and be the guy playing more minutes than Derek Dixon. However, there will certainly continue to be games, in my opinion, where Derek Dixon plays more than Kyan Evans, but I think more often than not, it will be Kyan playing more minutes than Derek Dixon. But man, it's closer than I think I thought I would think. And I know that probably didn't make any sense, but I thought Kyan Evans and Derek Dixon's gap would be bigger than I actually believe it is. But I think ultimately when we get to the end of conference play, Kyan will still be playing more minutes per game than Derek Dixon. And then similarly, Will Self asks, how much confidence do you have that one of Evans or Dixon will emerge as the true leader at point guard, as opposed to settling for the safer option late. And if I understand Will's question here, he's saying rather than it being, it feels like it's pretty dead even right now. How much confidence do I have that one or the other will emerge as the guy, with the other guy being the true backup? Will, I honestly don't have much confidence in that. But I think it's in the good version of that, where it's not like neither one is producing. I think the thing is that they're both going to be producing, and that coach will continue to ride whichever is playing better in a given game. I think there will also continue to be time where we see both Evans and Dixon on the floor at the same time. One of the things we've seen a couple times here is Evans get into some first half foul trouble, and then Derek Dixon step in more in those games. So it might not even be like, oh, I think this is a Derek Dixon game. It might be foul dependent or things of that nature. So, Will, to your question, I don't have confidence that one of them will take the mantle. Although, again, as I had just answered, I do think that Kyan is the guy that will lead more than Derek Dixon. But I think Derek Dixon is critical and crucial to what this team is going to do. Last question here in the personnel side of things. Brady B from the Discord asks, by the end of conference play, what do you think the rotation and scoring will look like? And this is a very good question from Brady. The truth for me is that I think the rotation honestly is going to continue to be pretty similar to what we've seen in the 2 games since Seth Trimble has come back. I expect for the starting 5 to continue to be Kyan Evans, Seth Trimble at the 1 and 2, Luka Bogavac at the 3, Caleb Wilson at the 4, and Henri Veesaar at the 5. I believe that's the starting 5. I believe that's the guys that will begin the game. However, I'm not necessarily convinced that they will be the 5 guys getting starters minutes. Jarin Stevenson has continued to play starters minutes in these 2 most recent games where he's come off the bench. And so that said, I think the main bench, the 3 guys that will come in behind those starting 5 are Jarin Stevenson, Derek Dixon, and Jonathan Powell. What's interesting is these last 2 games with Seth Trimble back in the mix, we've seen those 3 guys. It's not like a steady, like one and then another trickle and then another trickle. It is at that first media timeout at the under 16. We've seen all 3 of them enter the game at the same time at that point. And I do continue to believe that that is your main 8. I think that's the 8 guys that we will see throughout the season be the core of what Carolina is doing. However, with Seth Trimble back, I do think there will be times when Carolina will venture into playing a 9th, sometimes a 10th guy. So the main bench for me, Jarin Stevenson, Derek Dixon, Jonathan Powell. The secondary bench behind those guys, I would see as Jaydon Young and Isaiah Denis. As Isaiah Denis continues to get healthy, I do think because of his finger injury and surgery, he's going to be behind the 8 ball this entire year, which as a freshman is much harder, right? Like if it was Seth Trimble coming back from injury or something, it's easier for him to just boom, roll right back in because he's been around and he's been experienced. With Isaiah Denis, I think that is tougher, but I think there's a lot that Isaiah Denis can bring. And so that's the secondary guys off the bench for me are Jaydon Young and Isaiah Denis. And then the tertiary bench, now that you've got Jarin Stevenson as your main backup big, I think we're going to continue to see less and less and less of both James Brown and Zayden High. But there will be moments where they get minutes, whether it's because of foul trouble to the other bigs or just because you got to just keep rolling some bodies in there. But there are some ACC games where Carolina could get ahead big if things go well, and then you might see more minutes from those guys. But that is the rotation to me. And then in terms of scoring, right now there are 4 Tar Heels averaging double figures this season. That's Wilson at 19.6. My projection for that is that he's going to drop down just a little bit in ACC play to about 18 points a game. I do think he will continue to average a double-double because I think the rebounds are going to be there, but I think teams are going to do a lot in ACC play to try to shut down or at least slow down Caleb. And so you might not see as many crazy high-scoring games from him, but I do think the couple other guys step up. I think Veesaar, he's at 16.8 right now. I think he hovers right around that 17 points a game mark. Seth Trimble right now is at 14.5. Obviously, a small sample size with 4 games. I would expect Seth to get more into the 15 to 16 range, and then Luka Bogavac is at 11.1 right now. I think he'll take a little bit of a jump as well. But then, you've got Kyan Evans and Derek Dixon both averaging in the 5 points per game, as is Jonathan Powell. I expect one of the three of them to take a little bit more of a jump, to get to like 7, maybe 8 points a game, take on a bigger offensive role. Jarin Stevenson at 6'5", I think he kind of is what he is, unless he starts hitting some threes that he needs to continue to take. We'll see what happens with that, but that's my expectations for both personnel and scoring. So there you go, Brady, my answers there. Now, let's move to actual Carolina's record and schedule and all that, because 2 seasons ago, they started 9-0 in ACC play. Got a question asking, you think they can replicate that? I'll give my answer coming up in just a second. And after I tell you about Rougiet, let's talk about something most men don't bring up, but absolutely should. The stress from work, money, life. It doesn't just switch off at night. And when it shows up at the worst possible time, Rougiet Ready is designed to help you take back control. Rougiet Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment created to support both the brain and the body, so you can feel present, confident, and ready for when the moment matters. Rougiet Ready combines 3 clinically proven ingredients in 1 mint that dissolves under your tongue so it absorbs fast. The science behind Rougiet Ready really stands out. 3 clinically proven ingredients in 1 formula designed to help both the mental and physical readiness. So it's easy to understand why over 150,000 men have already made this switch. You connect with a board-certified doctor online and everything ships discreetly to your door. Most men are ready in about 15 minutes, so you can stay present, confident, and in control for when the moment is right. If you've been thinking about taking the next step, now's the time. Head to Rougiet.com/lockedoncollege. That's RUGIET.com/lockedoncollege to get 15% off your order for a limited time. Rougiet Ready. Feel present, feel ready, feel confident. Hey, thanks so much for making Locked On Tar Heels your first listen or watch of the day, and for making the Locked On Network the #1 sports podcast network there is. I also want to make sure you're aware of our brand new Everydayers Club, an opportunity to dive in deeper with our show. There's 2 tiers to it. There's a $5 tier and a $15 tier. That's for the all access, where you get all sorts of perks. It's a great thing. Check it out. That link is in the show notes. All right, our next question comes from our guy Drew on the Locked On Tar Heels Discord. Again, that link is in the show notes. We'd love for you to come join our community on Locked On Tar Heels Discord. Drew asks, can this UNC team have a better, I'm putting an emphasis on the word better, conference start compared to the 2023-24 team? Let me remind you that 2023-24 team started off 9-0 in ACC play. They had wins over Florida State, at Pitt, at Clemson, at NC State. Yes, 3 straight road games to start the main chunk of ACC play. The Florida State game was in early December, and they rattled those off. Then they beat Syracuse at home, Louisville at home. That was a not good Louisville team, I'll remind you. Then won at BC versus Wake and at Florida State. So the thing there is none of those teams were really like, I guess Clemson was probably the best win in that stretch. They were ranked 19th at Ken Palm at that point. Wake was 28th at Ken Palm. So a couple nice wins there. Drew, my direct answer to your question is no. I do not believe this team will have a better start to ACC play than that team did, but I believe it's close. So my answer is no, but close. That Carolina team, they won their first 9 straight. Then they lost 3 out of 5. There was a couple wins. There was the Georgia Tech win Georgia Tech loss, heading into the first Duke game that Carolina won, by the way. That was the game where they had that great play design. RJ got fouled basically at the end, no call. Carolina's down 1. If they call that, he goes to the free throw line, boom, ball game. But then Carolina lost to Clemson at home, won at Miami, and then lost at Syracuse. But then after that, the Tar Heels reeled off 6 in a row to finish ACC play 17-3 and win the ACC regular season. So here's why I don't think they can start better, Drew and others, because here's the first 10. And in order to be better, they'd have to go 10-0. They host FSU tomorrow. We'll get that game ready and prepped on tomorrow's show. Then they're at SMU, hosting Wake, at Stanford, at Cal, hosting Notre Dame, at Virginia, at Georgia Tech, hosting Syracuse, hosting Duke. I do not think Carolina goes undefeated in that stretch. And the 2 most likely games to me to lose are at Virginia and then hosting Duke. There's also a possibility that you lose one of the 2 California games when you go out to Stanford and Cal. Carolina should win those games, but it's a possibility. So I think, Drew and others, that Carolina comes out of this first, and remember, there's not 20 ACC games this year, there are 18. So the first 10 games is over half of conference play. I would say that Carolina comes out of that stretch somewhere between 7-3 to 9-1. I think the more likely option is 8-2, where you lose either or both the at Virginia and the hosting Duke games, or you win one of those and maybe you drop just another random one because it's ACC play and that's what happens. So I think 8-2 is the 10-0 is the 10 game start. If you dialed it back to the first name, like could they match that 9-0 start? I think it's 8-1 in the first 9, but that's just my projection right now. I'd love to hear from others. In a similar vein, Vuk asks on the Discord, Isaac, which game do you think is more dangerous, Virginia at the end of January or Louisville at the end of February? My answer, Vuk, is the Virginia game that I just kind of mentioned at the end of January. So for anyone wondering, Carolina plays at Virginia on Saturday, January 24th. That's the day before my birthday, oddly enough. And then they host Louisville on Monday, February 23rd. So almost a month to the day later. There's a couple things here. Number one, that game is at Virginia and Carolina hosts Louisville. So immediately there, you've got a home court advantage against Louisville and you're on the road at JPJ, John Paul Jones Arena, where, sometimes Carolina just struggles. I know it is a brand new Virginia regime with Ryan Odom in. They play a lot more offensive style. It is not a Tony Bennett style really in any way. And they've got some nice pieces in the front court, which could rival Carolina. I think Carolina can win that game, but Virginia is a good team. Louisville, on the other hand, it's kind of up and down. With Carolina played Louisville just once last year in Pat Kelsey's first year. It was early in the season before Carolina had really figured out what they figured out like down the stretch. And so it was not, in my opinion, the best version of Carolina last year. So they've got an opportunity to make some amends there. But I think Carolina and Louisville, that's down the stretch of ACC play. After that Louisville game, Carolina just has 3 remaining, but it's the first game of a 3-game home stretch hosting Louisville, Virginia Tech, and Clemson before going to Duke to end the regular season. And so I just think the Louisville game, to me, has more possibility for Carolina to win it. I think they'll be really locked in. Not that they won't be for the Virginia game. But I just think of those two that you ask about, I think the Virginia game is the one more likely to give Carolina some trouble. The nice thing is that after that, they got a week off before heading down to Atlanta to play Georgia Tech. So again, my answer, Vuk, is Virginia on the road at the end of January. And our guy Nintendo Nerd, last one in this segment, asks, Isaac, if you could pick one conference team that we should win, but we will find a way to lose, what game are you picking? For example, it seems we always find ways to lose at Georgia Tech, even when they're bad. Yeah, I just mentioned one of them, crying out loud. So as I look at the schedule, the first one that jumps out to me as a possibility for this is another place that I think Carolina struggles on the road sometimes, and that is down at Miami. The Tar Heels only play the Hurricanes once this season, at least in the regular season, I guess I should say, and that is down at Miami. It's a game coming off. Here's another reason for it. It is right after Carolina hosts Duke. So Carolina hosts Duke on a Saturday, and then they're down at Miami that next Tuesday. So there's kind of an emotional hangover potential for that game. Plus, I know Miami also has a new coach, but they've got some nice pieces. Malik Renault's playing really well. They've got another freshman, Shelton Henderson, that was supposed to be at Duke, but he went down to Miami as their new coach went down there. And so I think that one has some possibility as a game Carolina should win, but could lose. As you think about one at home, because I don't want to just give you a road game, because that's kind of like, well, duh. One interesting road game is a similar situation. It's the game right after the Louisville game. Carolina hosts Virginia Tech. The Hokies have a really good scorer in Neo Avdalas, who is a big guard, can do a lot of everything, and could potentially give Carolina trouble. I'm curious to see how Seth Trimble can handle him, although Virginia Tech doesn't have much outside of that. But that game is sandwiched between Louisville and Clemson, and then Carolina goes to Duke. So that's another game where it's like, yeah, it just has potential to be a game, Nintendo Nerd, that Carolina should win, but they might find a way to lose. As I look at KenPom right now, Carolina favored by 10 in that game, But again, we know how that doesn't always mean everything. All right, coming up. All of this said, what is Carolina's floor and ceiling? That's another great question we got. And a question about, hey, look, all these schools are picking up dudes mid-season. Is Carolina get on that train? We'll answer those questions to wrap the show coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about FanDuel, Fridays already feel really different during basketball season, and FanDuel is going to make them feel even better. Every Friday night before the games tip off, FanDuel is giving fans just like you a brand new way to kick off the weekend with the NBA Happy Hour, which is going to be your official pregame, a limited time 90-minute window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before everything gets going on Fridays. This will be Fridays from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, not in your time zone. If you live in Central time like me, it'll be 5 to 6:30. And so that 90 minutes have become appointment viewing with NBA Happy Hour. You just open up the app, and FanDuel is always bringing something new: boosts, bonuses, surprises, whatever it is. It's easy to check the weekly special before tip-off and make a move all the way up until when that window closes. Plus, the timing is perfect. It's right before games, right before the weekend starts, and that adds extra energy to Friday night basketball without having to overthink it. That said, how about some ACC regular season championship odds, as we're kind of talking about that today? Duke is favored at -120 at FanDuel, followed by Louisville at +290, and then that Virginia team we just talked about at +1100. Clemson +1300, and only then come the Tar Heels at +1400. Seems like some great value to me that you might want to get in on. Make sure to check it out. And also, don't forget, before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. A little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Next question comes from LaRosia DDW on our Discord, who says, you could always do a floor ceiling for the Tar Heels. I can't imagine them finishing outside the top 4 for the floor, and we all know what the ceiling is. I honestly don't need to say much more than that, but I'm going to because you asked. For me, Carolina's ACC regular season floor is 4. We just gave you those odds. I'll give it again. The top 6 at FanDuel are Duke, Louisville, Virginia, Clemson, then Carolina, and then NC State. That is backwards to me. I do think, yes, that Duke, Louisville, and Virginia are each part of that top 4, but I think that Carolina is as well. I don't believe as much in this Clemson team as we have in past years. Seen some really good stuff lately. The PJ Hall, the Shefflin, those guys aren't there. In Carolina, unless I'm misthinking, yes, only plays Clemson once, and that's at home, similar to Louisville. And so I just don't see the Tigers overtaking Carolina. But I also, again, think Virginia is kind of in that upper tier. Carolina only plays Virginia once, and that is in Charlottesville. So that's a little bit of a struggle. But for me, I know there was all the preseason hoopla about NC State. I think they've already proven that they're just, even if they beat Carolina when Carolina is over in Raleigh, I just think there's too many games that NC State is going to lose otherwise that will keep them out of being that top 4. And so what Carolina really needs to do, as things sit right now, they have 5 quad 3 games in ACC play. That'll be this game tomorrow against FSU, hosting Notre Dame, the game at Georgia Tech, hosting Syracuse, and hosting Pitt. Obviously, those can change. What you got to do to get this top 4 seed is not mess any of those up. No excuses. You have to go 5-0 in those games. No ifs, ands, or buts. And then right now, Carolina also has 5 Q2 games in ACC play, hosting Wake, at Stanford, at Q's. That's 2 of your first 5 games, or 3 of your first 5 games. Oh, by the way. And then hosting Virginia Tech and hosting Clemson right at the end of regular season play. So kind of the bookends of it. Those, I mean, you'd love to go 5-0 there as well, but I could live with 4-1. I don't love that, but fine, whatever. And then again, 8 quad 1 ACC games. However, 6 of those are on the road. At SMU, at Cal. Those are the other 2 first 5 ACC games. So good grief. 4 of your first 5 ACC games are quad 1 and 2. So there's that. At Virginia, hosting Duke, at Miami, at State, hosting Louisville, and at Duke are the 8 quad 1 games. And so I think to be in that top 4, the way I would frame it is that you got to go 5-0 in those quad 3 games, 4-1 or better in quad 2. And of these 8 quad 1 games, 6-2, maybe you could get away with 5-3. I don't know, that maybe 1, maybe 4-4. I don't love that, but for top 4, I think that could do it. So, but ultimately, Carolina's going to have to be really good to get to where they want to get. But again, I think the floor is 4. I just don't see 4 teams better than Carolina. Frankly, I don't see more than 1 or 2, and even that's in question. But that's where that is. And as for the ceiling, yes, I truly do think Carolina could win this thing, both regular season and tournament. I think they've got the horses. Part of it goes back to the first conversation we had on today's show of the point guards really got to settle in and continue to grow and push one another. I think, that's going to be a critical part of this as well. But there's my floor and ceiling for Carolina in the ACC regular season. 4 is the lowest, 1 as the highest. And if you get that, if you win the ACC, given what Carolina did in non-conference play, you're looking at a top 2 seed in the NCAA tournament, pending what happens in the ACC tournament. So that's good. Taft Flower says, now that the G League, Taft is one of our great insiders, by the way, says, now that the G League guys are eligible for college, will UNC pursue a G League player? I'll say 2 different things about this, Taft. Unlike what we're seeing some other schools do, Baylor just got to commit, for example. I do not see Hubert Davis doing that mid-season, save for a dire situation. The movie that comes to mind is the movie Miracle. You all know I like to use movies a lot for analogies, and especially because we're coming up on the Winter Olympics. But one of the things that happens in Miracle is Herb Brooks, the head coach, puts this whole team together. And then while they're in their kind of exhibition schedule, there's this kid that's been killing it in NCAA hockey that year. So he brings him out to play with them for a game and then asks some of the captains about it, or talks with some of the captains about it after the game. And they're basically like, he's great. We don't want him. We got our guys. We got our team. We're a family and we don't need him. I don't care how good he is. We've got our chemistry, and anything we bring in might mess that up. And I think it's a very similar thing here, Taft, is that Hubert Davis recognizes hey, we're looking good. We're rolling. We've got our front court intact. Yes, you would, again, like maybe a little bit more depth at the 5, that, for example, but feeling better about that now with Jarin being able to slide over and play some more front court minutes, for example. And so there's all of that. So ultimately, no, I don't think Carolina would do it mid-season like we're seeing. However, I do think that in terms of somebody that's been in the G League, that would be coming back to try to play in college in the regular, whether it's transfer portal season or whatever it is. Yeah, I think Carolina would absolutely go after that, because the Tar Heels, the coaching staff, shouldn't be. It's not their fault that the NCAA can't get it together, right? And so if there are guys available that can play in college, go get them. Why not? That's, kind of Luka, right? Like that sort of thing is opened up. And so I think, yes, Carolina would pursue somebody like that, but not mid-season. I feel good about both sides of that. Last thing here before we get out of here, nothing from our weekend whip around. The literally only action is something that hasn't happened yet. It's tonight, Monday. The women's basketball team is back in action, starting off the main chunk of their ACC play. They already have played one ACC game a couple weeks ago. That was against Louisville. They lost that game. So the ladies right now sit at 11-3 overall, 0-1 in ACC play. They're 16th in the nation. They play at BC tonight. That's 8 p.m. Eastern on ACC Network. The Eagles are not good. They're 4-10 overall, 0-1 in ACC play, and they've lost 6 straight, and they've lost some games they had no business. An ACC team simply should not lose. So the ladies on the road should go up and just do absolute work, but you got to go win. You got to go win. And again, it's the first game back after a little bit of a layoff. So obviously the girls might be a little bit rusty. Obviously we'll talk about a similar thing for the guys tomorrow when we preview the Florida State game. All right, you all, thanks so much for being with me to kick off a brand new Monday. Hope you're getting geared up for New Year's Eve and New Year's Day and everything that's coming with that. I hope, again, that you had a great Christmas last week and that you've had a really nice weekend. Hopefully you've got some time off to rest and recharge and get ready for the new year. It's crazy stuff. All right, we will be back tomorrow. I'm going to record one more time here at my parents' house, but I will be back home Tuesday night. So we will go live after the Florida State game as soon as I can get home. It's like a 12-hour drive, and so we'll see how that goes. But my wife, my dear sweet wife, said she would drive during the end of that so that I can watch the game and be ready to go live basically when we get home. So that's the plan, and that's what we'll do. If you have not subscribed to the show already, go ahead and subscribe, YouTube and audio. If you've not checked out the brand new Everydayers Club, that link is in the show notes. It's a great way to go next level with the show. If you haven't joined our Discord, man, it's a great community of Tar Heel people chatting and having great conversation all the time, every day, all day long. It's so crazy. It's so fun. But for now, it's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. Can't wait to talk to you again tomorrow. But until then, peace.